Tonight on Denver 7 News at 6.
It's very dangerous. Our temperatures are going to be in the negatives.
Homeless shelters sound the alarm, and testing sites close ahead of sub-zero temperatures.
And that bitter sub-zero cold is not very far away, and it's set to swoop down into Colorado for the weekend.
Plus, the prosecution rests in the second impeachment trial of Donald Trump.
If we pretend this didn't happen, who's to say it won't happen again?
Local lawmakers get down to brass tacks on COVID relief.
The economic recovery of Colorado is not a Democratic or Republican issue.
And Colorado takes its obsession with beer to a whole new level.
We are combining a day spa and a tap room into one.
Good evening. Glad you're with us tonight. I'm Shannon Ogden.
And I'm Ann Trujillo. If you thought it was cold today, wait until you see what we're in for this weekend. Denver is likely to drop below zero for the first time in more than a year.
Now, the change will be gradual. Tomorrow, really cold. Saturday, even colder. Sunday, obscenely cold.
Chief Meteorologist Mike Nelson has made a career being the bearer of bad news at times. So, Mike, this sounds like a weekend best spent indoors.
Probably a pretty good plan. Find a good book and curl up near a warm fire. As far as temperatures right now, look at the contrast. How often do you see it warmer in Fraser than it is in downtown Denver? The cold air is huddled across the eastern plains. It's heavy, it's dense, doesn't like to move uphill, and so it hasn't quite made it up into the foothills and across the mountains right now, but there is a lot of cold air out there. It's 2 currently at Sterling, 1 below at Cheyenne. Laramie, not that far away, is at 31, and look at Grand Junction, Montrose in the mid-40s right now. Even Salida is at 43, but here's the edge of that cold air pushing westward, and that's going to continue to swoop into the area. Winter weather advisories in the mountains, wind chill advisories on the plains, a few flurries right now developing in the Denver area for tonight. We're going to see that colder air coming in, and that cold air gets bolder as we head into the weekend. Metro snow this weekend, a few inches, heavier mountain snow and areas of freezing fog on the plains as well. A really wintry outlook coming up. Full details in about 10 minutes.
Homeless shelters across the metro are pooling resources ahead of the temperature drop. Denver 7's Ivan Rodriguez reports tonight from Aurora.
Michael Prince has been homeless for 6 years now. When the temperatures drop drastically, it's shelters like this one that keep him out of the elements.
Having places like this really helps. On cold days, their doors are open, it's warm, they have coffee, they have food. They provide a lot of services. Mile High Behavioral Healthcare says this shelter will serve about 120 people.
This is the emergency shelter that we got money from the Emergency Solutions Grant for the pandemic. So this will be activated and full over the next 5 days.
But they also opened the space in their back lot.
We do have heated tents and a space for staff. So for social distancing reasons, people that need to quarantine, people that are not comfortable inside of a facility, we're also able to provide that safe camping site as well.
Starting Thursday night, Mile High Behavioral Healthcare and the city of Aurora will be doing outreach, making sure people are aware of the available resources.
We're making sure that we're visiting areas where there are encampments to check on folks, to make sure that they are asked if they'd like to come inside for shelter. If they're not interested in coming inside, we make sure that they have, survival kits and the gear that they need to be able to survive these very cold nights.
Between the tents on this lot, the shelter behind me, and all the other resources the city of Aurora is providing, the goal is to give shelter to anyone who needs it.
It's very dangerous. Our temperatures are going to be in the negatives.
The city of Aurora says people will also be COVID-19 tested and have their temperature checked while staying at their shelters. Ivan Rodriguez, Denver 7.
An Aurora police officer has been fired for excessive force. The incident happened at a King Soopers in August of 2020 and was first made public this evening. After punching this man repeatedly, Officer Robert Rosen goes for his taser, using it 5 times for a total of 27 seconds. A fellow officer found Rosen's behavior concerning, and the department agreed. The man he assaulted was taken to the hospital and later released with minor injuries.
All right, listen up. All Denver-run testing sites will be closed Friday through Monday because of the cold and because of President's Day holiday. So anyone who needs a test in the interim should visit covidcheckcolorado.com. 1,700 cases and 31 deaths were confirmed by the state today. 500 people tonight are in the hospital. That's down 400 from a month ago.
The director of the Denver Health Department said today that the city is seeing the greatest drop in cases since the start of the pandemic. He also revealed that 1 out of 10 people in Denver has received at least 1 dose of the vaccine.
I recall saying that if we stick together, we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. I feel comfortable saying now we are getting through this. We are seeing numbers going down across the country. There are still some states that have some very high numbers, still struggling with managing the pandemic. But here in Denver, our numbers are looking very good.
And that's great to hear. So how's this for good news? Colorado King Soopers and City Market stores started offering the vaccine today. You must be 65 or older. You must work in a child care facility or work in education to qualify. And appointments should be made in advance. And you will find a link to sign up on thedenverchannel.com.
And Denver7 is committed to answering your questions about the vaccine. And one we get a lot is whether you can contract COVID even after you've gotten shot. Well, the answer is yes, but your case is not likely to be severe.
If you get the vaccine, you're probably not going to get hospitalized and you're probably not going to get very sick. But you may have very mild infection. You may have a runny nose, you could have a sore throat, you may just feel tired for a couple of days.
That was Dr. Michelle Barron, Director of Infection Prevention and Control at UC Health. You can watch our full conversation with her right now on thedenverchannel.com. Fort Carson-based troops are on their way to Los Angeles tonight to help with the vaccine effort.
A lieutenant colonel told us this operation didn't even exist a week ago. But you won't hear any complaints out of these men and women. They go where they're told, when they're told, and they do it well.
Number one focus of the Army is to fight and win the nation's wars. And right now we've been at war with COVID. And we're taking the fight back to COVID by vaccinating as many people as we can.
And we appreciate you. And all 222 service members from the 4th Infantry are headed to California. They will be joined by 4 other teams of the same size and expect to administer 6,000 shots a day. At last word, 72,000 Coloradans were relying on the standard unemployment system to get by. Another 75,000 were counting on special unemployment systems set up by the federal government. And judging by our inbox, many others are still waiting on payment.
The prosecution has rested and the defense has the floor in the second impeachment trial of Donald Trump. Now, even some of the more skeptical Republicans admit they have a hard act to follow. House Democrats laid out a simple, effective case that concerned not only the president's words, but how his followers heard them.
We were invited here! We were invited here!
Have you noticed throughout this presentation the uncanny similarity over and over and over again of what all these people are saying? They said what Donald Trump said, and they echoed each other. Stand back and stand by. Stop the steal. Fight like hell. Trump sent us. We are listening to Trump. We know who lit the fuse. Donald Trump told these insurrectionists to come to the Capitol and stop the steal. And they did come to the Capitol. And they tried to stop the certification. They came because he told them to.
Attorneys for Trump are expected to argue the president was taken out of context and that he never gave explicit orders to storm the Capitol. Their testimony should begin tomorrow.
Colorado lawmakers will return to the Capitol tomorrow with a full head of steam and a long to-do list. Denver7's Megan Lopez talked to 4 of them about their top priorities.
After a nearly month-long recess, next week Colorado lawmakers say they're ready for the real start to the legislative session. At the top of their priority list is economic recovery. For Democrats,
what we need to do is we need to look at where the federal money's coming in, and we need to redirect state dollars into the spots that the federal relief's not coming into.
We really need to be able to respond to the urgent needs that Coloradans are facing, whether that's housing or utility assistance, helping on the unemployment.
Republicans, meanwhile, say the recovery means common sense solutions and less burden on businesses.
But the real relief is we lifted 22 different regulations on individuals and businesses were lifted during the pandemic. Perhaps those 22 regulations that were lifted during the pandemic should stay off.
Another big topic this session, once again, will be transportation.
We have not fixed our transportation funding system in nearly 25 years. And so we are far behind other states, and Coloradans know that.
Is it adding a fee to the gas tax, which I think the voters just 90 days ago told us they're not really fans of just adding more taxes and calling them fees.
Education funding is also likely to come up, another area where Republicans and Democrats agree something needs to be done. They just disagree on what.
And so we're going to have to be adaptable. We're going to have to continue to look at the K through 12 system,
We need to have that money go where that student is finding success.
And after major police reforms last session, even more proposed changes this time around.
That it's not always just a response by law enforcement. A lot of times it'll be a mental health professional or a social worker, someone who has a set of skills that are needed on that scene. And so I'm bringing a bill this year to provide grant funding.
Bills to cut healthcare costs, address judicial reforms, and more are also on the docket. So brace yourself, because it's going to be a very busy session. Megan Lopez, Denver7.
Coming up, Colorado's prehistoric past goes up for display.
These animals lived awesome and really active lives here.
And a gift for the beer lover who has everything.
So this is our private beer therapy room.